Welcome to section 9.9. This is quadratic formula and the discriminant. So this is video number 1, and we are going to be primarily going over the quadratic formula in this video. So let's get started. The quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, as we discussed in class already, is the only method that can be used to solve any quadratic equation. Absolutely any quadratic equation can be used, or it can be solved using the quadratic formula. And this is kind of cool because we've already gone through graphing, we've gone through completing the square, we've gone through factoring and that sort of thing, and we've used multiple different methods. And some of these methods have some good points and some of them have some bad points. But the quadratic formula, if you're good with positives and negatives and squaring things, you can be very successful finding solutions every single time using this formula. So essentially what we can do is say the solutions for a situation ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a is not equal to 0. If a were equal to 0, then this whole front term would be gone and everything would be a linear equation. So where a is not equal to 0, it could be -1, it could be -1,000,000, it could be positive 275, it doesn't matter. This situation, the solution for it could be modeled like this. We could say x is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this formula we did in class, it was derived from completing the square and just paying attention to what is exactly happening with all of these letters and that sort of thing if we made it really general. But this this equation is derived from completing the square. This is exactly what you're doing when you are completing the square. Your final answer is in this format. So in order to, if we wanted to avoid completing the square, we could use this equation. So let's actually avoid completing the square with this problem right here. We have 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. So very first thing, before we actually go through everything, let's actually identify our our A number, our B number, and our C number. So our A is 2, our B is 3, and our C is -5. So now we can put this into our equation. We have x is equal to -3, our B term, negative, plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 and times -5, and all of this is over 2 times 2, our A term. So -b plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now we can actually solve this. We can solve this and think of all the different ways that we can do this. So let's actually solve this equation. Let's find those solutions. When I see something like this, when I see all this mumbo jumbo, I actually like to find the stuff that I have to do no matter what first. And it looks like I cannot actually take the square root of 3 squared minus 4ac. I cannot take the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times -5. But I could take the square root of a number if that all worked itself out. And so I'm going to pay attention to everything that is underneath that square root sign. So let's just write this square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times a -5. We can now do 3 squared, which is 9, minus 4 times 2 is 8 times a -5, and we're taking the square root of that. -8 times a -5, that equals a positive 40, so 9 plus 40 is what we got, and so that is equal to the square root of 49. Alright, so all of this is equal to square root of 49. So now I'm going to rewrite this. I have x is equal to -3 plus or minus the square root of 49. That's all divided by 2 times 2. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take that square root of 49. So I then have -3 plus or minus square root of 49 is 7 divided by 2 times 2. 2 times 2. Now let's continue. So 2 times 2, we can do that math, that equals 4. So this all equals negative 3 plus or minus 7 divided by 4. So we now have two equations that we can create because we have one that will have a positive and one that is negative in the middle. So we have negative 3 plus 7 divided by 4, and then we also have a negative 3 minus 7 divided by 4. So if we continue this, negative 3 plus 7 is a negative, or is a positive 4, whoops, not a negative 4, a positive 4, and we're going to divide that by 4. And we have negative 3 minus 7, that equals a negative 10, and that is divided by 4. So last but not least, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and negative 10 divided by 4 is negative 5 over 2. So we're just dividing the top number and the bottom number by 2. And so x is equal to 1, 0, that point, or negative 5 halves, 0. That is our final answer. So let's try one more equation, and using this a squared, or negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, that whole square root divided by 2a. We're now going to do this other equation with that. So looking at this equation, very first thing, we should get this every bit of these numbers on one side. So we need to subtract 2x from both sides. So we get 0 is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. Let's identify our a, b, and c. Our a term is 1, our b term is a negative 2, and our c term is a negative 3. Last but not least, let's stick it in our equation. We have the equation negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So using that information, let's say we have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times a negative 3 all square rooted all over 2 times 1. After that, we can do some simplification. Let's deal with this stuff inside of the square root symbol. So negative 2 squared is 4. So we have 4 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times a negative 3. So we got 4 times negative 4 times negative 3 equals, I messed up a little bit, is equal to a positive 12. So we have 16 under there. I like it when we have 16 as our square root. So we have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 16 all divided by 2 times 1. Let's continue this and finish it up. So negative 2, that equals a positive 2 every single time. And then we still have our plus or minus. Square root of 16 is 4, divided by 2 times 1 is 2. So our two equations that we're going to create is 2 plus or minus 4 divided by 2, and x is equal to 2. Well, it's not plus or minus. Let's actually just pick one. That's how we actually create an equation. Let's pick plus, and then we'll say 2 minus 4 divided by 2. Last little bit, 2 plus 4 is equal to 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. And 2 minus 4 is negative 2 divided by 2 is equal to a negative 1. So our answers for this, x can equal 3, 0, or negative 1, 0. Those 2 points crossing the x-axis. So work yourself through the first half of the homework for quadratic equations. Work yourself through that, and I hope this video helps. Be sure to ask any questions if you have any, and I will talk to you later. Bye.